In Captain America: Brave New World, we follow Sam Wilson, who has taken the mantle as the new Captain America. A series of issues involving foreign affairs and assassination attempts send him and his new Falcon sidekick Joaquin Torres on a mission to find out who's pulling the strings and how everything is connected. I'm keeping the synopsis pretty vague to avoid spoilers, but this movie is a political conspiracy thriller. Thaddeus Ross, formerly played by the late William Hurt and now played by Harrison Ford, is seemingly at the center of someone's convoluted schemes. It's a mystery of who's pulling the strings for Sam Wilson and his new sidekick to solve, and that mystery is what carries the movie. Underneath all of that, there is a recurring theme of insecurity. It's something that Ross struggles with, and also our titular hero. Following the events of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Sam has been dubbed the new Captain America, but he still struggles with feeling like he just isn't enough to don the shield. It's a little bit meta because, much like the show, the movie acknowledges that the audience won't completely accept him as Captain America. The movie also floats the idea of digging into the morality of Sam being a hero that fights for the government rather than the people, but that wasn't really explored. The idea is presented and then just sort of abandoned. It would have been cooler to explore that than to just kind of repeat Falcon and Winter Soldier's subject of insecurity. I don't want to say that this movie just completely rehashes that show's premise of Sam feeling like he's not enough to be Captain America, because the reasons why are a little bit different in this movie, but nevertheless, for Sam Wilson and his character development, it is again about his Cap insecurity. This movie sort of doubles as a sequel to Falcon and Winter Soldier, but also a sequel to the Incredible Hulk movie from 2008 with Edward Norton. We've got Thaddeus Ross, who, as it's been plastered all over the movie's marketing, not only becomes president, but also the Red Hulk. And a couple other characters who I will just keep on the DL for those of you who stay out of the loop on MCU news. As much as I like the idea of this being a pseudo-Hulk sequel, it kind of feels a little bit late because boy, does this movie feel contrived. If you're like me and you thought Gladiator 2 felt forced and unnecessary, let me tell you, you have not seen anything yet. This movie was not really set up by happenings of the Incredible Hulk movie. It was more so set up by a bunch of happenings that occurred off screen in between movies. Like Ross being elected president, replacing the guy who we just saw on Secret Invasion, and Sam Wilson championing a new Falcon, and everything involving the big mystery character. There's honestly too much to mention. Most of these happenings are clarified by a ridiculous amount of exposition dumping and info dumping throughout the movie. There are way too many dialogue scenes where characters are filling in the gaps for what they've been doing between movies and the connections that they've made with each other. Just a little PSA, if you don't have enough material in your first movie to build a sequel off of, and you're forced to just make up a bunch of stuff that happened in between films, then the sequel is going to feel contrived. The movie over-explains some things rather than showing us in an organic fashion, or just having faith in us being able to put very basic things together. Among things that we can put together is just the grand plan. Even though it's a pretty easy mystery to put together, it gets over-explained so that it can't possibly escape minimally engaged viewers. Don't get me wrong, it might be a little bit convoluted, but it is by no means confusing, and it's honestly even a little bit predictable. It's not hard to put together at all if you're actually paying attention to the movie, but then everything just gets spoon-fed to us by stilted dialogue at the end of the second act. It was just redundant and honestly insulting. So narratively, this movie has issues, but that's not the only reason that people go to see Marvel movies. They also go for the trademark action sequences and the quippy humor. Action-wise, this movie has its moments. There are some action scenes that are actually pretty thrilling. There are others that are less thrilling, but still fine. And then there's the ones that have subpar CGI and green screening. Certainly not the worst I've ever seen, but it's sometimes mediocre enough that it'll leave you making funny faces. Red Hulk's overall design is great. He sometimes looks awesome, and then there are other times where he looks a little bit cartoony, and there are scenes where he's jumping around and the motion blur just looks off. So for the action and CGI, it's a mixed bag. The humor is thankfully not too much. There is a little bit, but not the way that a lot of Marvel projects are nowadays. It's mostly pretty serious, but then there is Joaquin, who is the comic relief. The bulk of the movie's humor comes from him. He's very playful and likes to tease other characters. He got a couple chuckles out of me. And then there were a couple times where he made me roll my eyes. I kind of just wish he was more than just the funny guy with wings, but for the majority of the movie, he really isn't much more than that. Most of the other supporting characters also felt pretty underutilized, but that could very well just be because of the amount of characters. You know, they're just all battling for screen time. We've got Shira Haas playing the character who was little more than a plot device. We've got our secret character who was okay. I really wish they had more screen time though. They really had the potential to be a lot cooler. And Giancarlo Esposito plays a marksman named Sidewinder. I won't say that he didn't need to be in the movie because he does fill a gap, but for a poster comic character, he also just felt underutilized. The big player in this movie is Ross, and I just can't help but think that I would have enjoyed the movie, or at least the third act, a lot more if they didn't put him as Red Hulk all over this movie's marketing. Like, on one hand, I totally get it. They need to market the movie in a way that will make people interested in it, and using characters like that will do that. And I like the idea of them keeping the secret character on the DL. And Sidewinder wasn't a big enough character to be the sole poster villain, so I understand that Harrison Ford as the Red Hulk is more enticing to fans. It'll sell more tickets, but at the expense of not having his transformation as this big momentous part of the movie. I just can't help but think that it would have been really awesome if I just didn't know that it was coming. So overall, this movie is like chicken without seasoning. It'll feed you in a pinch, but it's nothing to get excited about, and honestly kind of bland. I really wish I could say that I liked this movie, but it was just a little bit lacking. Like a lot of MCU projects now, this one is just for the diehard MCU fans. I don't think I can recommend this to casual Marvel viewers. Thanks for watching this review. If it brought you any value at all, please give it a like. It really does help the channel grow. I'll see you later this week with my review of The Monkey.